Welcome into Texans On Tap, episode 22. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. Give them a follow on X at Palillo and at Josh Jordan 975 respectively. Jack Brame is producing. To support this channel, please hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel. That's it. Broncos come into NRG as 3.5-point dogs, fresh off their thrashing of Cleveland. Hey, thanks, Denver. Appreciate that. Let's start with the offensive matchup. Texans averaged less than 4 yards a carry versus the Jaguars. How do you think, or how do you like Houston's chances to right the ship offensively versus Denver on Sunday?
Boy, it's to the point. I'm not going to expect the Texans to run the ball well unless we know Singletary is going to get 20 carries. Nothing personal against Dameon Pierce, but the Texans have one guy who's run the ball well this season, and that guy is Devin Singletary. So feed him if you're going to try to establish the run against the Broncos. Denver has surged into this race at a punchline team early. The Sean Payton, Russell Wilson marriage. They were 1-5. Well, here they are tied with the Texans 6-5. So I think the division race for the Texans is pretty much over. Jacksonville would have to collapse. I think Jacksonville's probably going to wind up 12-5, meaning if the Texans don't lose again, they would not win the division. But the wild card, or a wild card, is absolutely right there. But this is a game you need because the Texans are a game behind the Steelers. Well, have that tiebreaker. They're a game behind the Browns, but with Cleveland's quarterback situation and the Browns coming here Christmas Eve, the Texans can catch them with the head-to-head and take that tiebreaker. Indy is 6-5. I think the Texans are going to have to win at Indianapolis the last game of the season, or the Colts sweep and would have the tiebreaker. So that leaves Denver as the other contender that the Texans can win this game, push the Broncos a game behind them, and the tiebreaker. So I think this is one of the three massive, massive must-win games, which don't include the two that you say, hey, the Texans should be able to whip up on the Titans twice and the Jets with that offense. So specifically to Denver's defense, it's good. I don't think there's a player or two or three that you say, whoa, how in the heck can the Texans handle that guy in particular? All I know is they held the Chiefs to 9 points. So the Texans offense needs to play a clean game. No silly penalties, illegal shifts, false starts, 0 turnovers. But you look at what Denver has done. It's not like the offense has gone off during this 5-game winning streak. They've won games where Russell Wilson has thrown for 114 yards, 134 yards. He's thrown for even 200 yards once in these 5 games. C.J. Stroud's at 304 in a row. So I think for the Broncos to win, it's going to have to be a low-scoring game. I would note Denver during this 5-game winning streak, 4 of them mile high. So I think if the Texans play a solid game, the right team is favored.
Well, I'll go back to that rushing question you asked. It is hard to love what you're seeing from the O-line, to think they'll get it going. And to be fair, the Broncos have played a lot better over this, 5-game stretch where they've won their games. And credit to Sean Payton for not firing Vance Joseph, giving him a little time to figure things out and turn it around. And it has worked. But even though, as we sit here, they are dead last in rushing yards against per game. They average giving up 155 yards a game. So if there's ever a week to get Singletary going, I think this could be the week. So this is going to be a tough one because, as Charlie pointed out, holding the Chiefs to 9. They beat Buffalo a few weeks ago as well. So, I mean, they're beating some good teams here. Of course, Buffalo, maybe it's more name value than how they're actually playing this year. But I don't know. I think they might be able to run the ball a little bit, Brandon. And that would help so much if CJ doesn't have to do everything.
When you look at NFL statistics, obviously there are a few games in the schedule, so the odd game here or there can move the numbers more. Well, when Denver was a disaster earlier this season, the Dolphins hung 70 on them. So Denver is like 24th in points allowed at 25.5 per game. If you remove that game from the mix, they're giving up 21 points per game. The Texans are giving up 21.1 points per game. So I think the defenses are comparable. So give me C.J. Stroud over this phase of his career, Russell Wilson.
Well, I think it's going to be really important for C.J. Stroud to stay clean this game. He took some big hits from Jacksonville and their O-line. And with Titus Howard injured, you really hope that the that the Texans O-line can protect CJ, keep him upright long enough to make some plays. Charlie, you mentioned defense, the defensive matchup. Let's switch over that to the Texans defense. As you were saying, this is not the same Russell Wilson that we've seen in years past. In fact, when I was looking at the box scores from this game, and I was looking at Russell Wilson's passing numbers from the Browns game, I had to do a double take to make sure I wasn't looking at just the first half numbers. Can the Texans defense get well against the Broncos offense here?
I think it's about preventing the big play, right? Jerry Jeudy's their deep threat. Cortland Sutton might be an interesting Texans free agent target. Is just a very good receiver. But as we've talked about in recent weeks, the Texans have had the propensity for giving up the big play. It wasn't a touchdown, but Calvin Ridley hit them for a 45-yarder in the game on Sunday. I just don't think this Wilson-led Broncos offense is good enough to drive 75, 80 yards multiple times for scores. So, farewell in the field position battle. Don't give them the giant chunk plays. I mean, good players, they hit you for a 20-yarder, 25-yarder here or there. Okay, but not 40, not 50, not 60. I mean, the last play before the first half Sunday against Jacksonville, right? It was Christian Kirk, and the Texans wriggled out of that with the stop on the goal line. But they're getting beaten deeply a little too often. Credit to the other guys sometimes, but blame to the Texans secondary, which dovetails with a pass rush given too much time for quarterbacks to be able to chuck it way, way downfield.
Yeah, Tavier Thomas really struggled in the Jags game. I mean, they were just picking on him like crazy. So I'm sure Sean Payton's going to see that, maybe try and get Jerry Jeudy on him and see if they can get him open in the middle of the field. Also, to Charlie's point, that the deep ball has hurt the Texans. Remember the beginning of the Bengals game, they got taken deep. Remember what Mike Evans did to the Texans. And, as we look at Cortland Sutton, he's kind of a similar receiver to Mike Evans. So I wonder if they'll try and use him that way. So Broncos have some weapons. Javonte Williams, nice running back. He did get injured, but came back in the game against the Browns. So it looks like he'll be good to go, but maybe that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, to your point, 6 plays of 20-plus yards surrendered to the Jags, with 4 of those being 40-plus. That's not going to get it done. Let's do predictions. Last week, you guys were really good. Charlie, you were within a point. Josh, you nailed it right on the head, just had the teams flipped. Give us some predictions for Broncos-Texans. I'm
going to flip sides this week and go with the Texans, but a 3-point game, so shop wisely, fans. 3.5. I will go Texans 20, Broncos 17.
Yeah, I'll give the Texans 24, Broncos 17.
Well, that's very similar. Well, awesome. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of Texans on Tap. We'll be back next week, hopefully with the Texans bouncing back, and we'll be talking about a win. And as always, thanks for listening, and let's go Texans.